Okay, good morning. Today is Tuesday, the Yitzie of the Bas Ayin Yud Beis Kislev Schus Yagin Aleinu. Today we're learning Perek Beis of Masech Shabbos on our way into Seder Moed. With Hashem, today's shiur sponsored Lila Nishmas Aaron Nachman ben Simcha Kohen Yeshua Mordechai ben Shepsel Rachas Sar b'Shmuel Leib and Binam Moshe ben Yosef Ben the Neshamas all have an Aliyah. And today's shiur is sponsored by the Black this week, the second week of Kislev is sponsored by the Blackbird Recruiting Group. Thank you for your sponsorship, Sheikh Rebecca Vatzlach, and it's also schuss for Victor Arab Ben Masha, and for him and his entire mishpacha. And today, the Basan's Yahrzeit is also sponsored as a schuss for Shlema for. I wrote this down. Azri, for Azriel Meir Ben Yehudis Avigail. Azriel Meir Ben Yehudis Avigail. May he have a full shlema mamish, first nefesh of Shaduf, so Shar Chali Yisrael. Amen. Okay. Perek Beis is a very familiar chapter to anyone in the Ashkenazi world. This is the chapter Bamim Malikim that we say during davening on Friday night. I think this is Sfard. I think the Hasidim say supposed to say it during the Suda, but it's definitely in the Nusach of the Ashkenaz for the Friday night davening. So Bamim Malikim, so Mishnah Aleph starts off, Perek Beis Mishnah Aleph, Bamim Malikim, Malikim. With which types of wicks and oils may we use to light Shabbos candles, and which types of wicks and oils may we not use to light Shabbos candles? This chapter was chosen to be said Friday night because it contains practical halachos regarding the Friday night Suda. So therefore, the Chazal put this into the Friday night davening. Okay, so starting off the list, lo belechesh, sorry, ein malikin, lo belechesh. We may not light the Shabbos candles with the fibers of a cedar tree. Right now, we're talking about the wicks. Okay, you can't use the fibers of a cedar tree. And not with uncombed flax. The raw unprocessed flax. Can't use that. Nor with kalach. What's kalach? Kalach is an inferior type of silk. Nor with the fibers of a willow tree. And nor with fibers of the desert. Nor with sea moss. It's like almost like seaweed. The stuff that's on the bottom of the boats. Okay, these materials all these things are not allowed to be used for wicks in the Shabbos for Shabbos candles because they do not have a steady flame, and Chazal were worried about adjusting the flame tilt the saner, and that would be a rice. So if it doesn't have a steady flame, you cannot use them on Shabbos. Now we're going to talk about the types of fuel. You cannot use molten pitch on for Shabbos, low b'Shabbat, and not with molten wax. You can use wax candles, but you cannot use liquid wax. Now, even though the candle is going to turn into wax, okay, but start off in the surah of a candle. Sometimes you have those candles in the glass cups that they turn like a Yitzie candle. It's a solid candle, but when you light it, it turns into a liquid. That's okay, but you can't like just take like a ball of hot wax and light a candle in it. That's a problem. A little bit shemen kick, and not with cottonseed oil. Okay, all these things are not they're not going to have good fuels. They're not going to produce a good light. The low b'shem and sreifa, and that with oil that must be burned. This is oil of truma that became tamei. We're going to talk about that more in the next Mishnah. The low ba'aliyah, and not with the fat of a sheep's tail. The aliyah is the tail of the sheep. You can't take the fat from the sheep from its tail to use for the Shabbos candles. Lo b'chelev, and not with chelev. Chelev is other fats from the animal which cannot be eaten. They must be burned. But they do not produce a steady flame. And therefore, okay, Shemen Sreifa is an interesting concept. We're gonna get into that in the next Mishnah. Nachamadi says, "Malikim bechilev avushal." You can light Shabbos candles with boiled chilev. When chilev is boiled, it becomes a liquid that can reduce a steady flame. Only solid chilev that has not been boiled is aser. Chachamim omrim echem avushal vechesh ein avushal ein malikim bo. What Chachamim say, no matter what, whether it's boiled or not boiled, you cannot light with chilev. Period. Okay. Mishnah Beis. Ein malikim b'shemen sreifa b'yontif. You cannot light oil that must be burned on yontif. What does this mean? This means that when yontif goes into Shabbos, okay, Friday's to light your Shabbos candles on that Friday night. Why? Because Shemen Sreifa is oil that was truma or kachim, mostly truma. Okay, so a Kohen can eat truma. But if the Kohen is tamei, or if the truma is tamei, then he cannot eat it. If the Kohen is tamei, then he could have someone else take the truma and eat the truma, or save it the one he's tar. If the truma becomes tamei, then it's gone. The only thing that can be done with truma is to burn it. So now, if he has oil that became tamei, he could light Shabbos candles with the truma tamei oil, but he cannot use that oil to light Shabbos candles when Friday was yontif, because you cannot burn kachim on yontif. Reivas kachim is aser to do on yontif. Therefore, it cannot be used even for a Shabbos candle. Rabbi Yishmael says, "Ein malikim be'itram b'nei kodesh Shabbos." You cannot light Shabbos candles with itran. Itran that produces a very smelly odor, and it's not covered Shabbos. Because if it's too smelly, then the people serving by Shabbos are just going to walk away, and that's not a good thing. The Chachamim atir b'kol hashmana, but the Chachamim allow lighting with all types of oils, with shemen shumshimin, with sesame oil, with shemen negosim, with nut oil, with shemen nunos, with radish oil, with shemen dagim, with fish oil, with shemen pekuos, with colocynth oil, which is like a type of colocynth is a type of gourd. With itran they say it's okay. Neft and with nafta. Nafta also gives off a very bad smell. Nevertheless, the Chachamim allowed the use of them because they are not worried that the odor might drive people out of the room in which the Shabbos meal is being held. This is not that bad. When you have according to the Chachamim, if you have all the other goods, the good foods and the wines and all that smells, maybe that's going to neutralize the smell from the candles that are off to the side. Who knows? Rabbi Tarfon says, Tarfon says you can only light with olive oil, no exceptions, because because the olive oil has the most beautiful flame, and uh, and, and even those who disagree with where we're and allow other things to be used, they do agree that olive oil is preferred. Mishnah Gimel, called Hayotzim and eight Emalikim Bo. You may not light Shabbos candles with a wick made of anything that comes from a tree, pishtan, except with a wick of flax, which is permitted. Even though flax doesn't grow on a tree, it's described as pishte eats the flax of the tree in Sefer Yeshua, and therefore um, it's included. It's excluded from that rule. And a roof that is made of anything that comes from a tree does not become tummy with with tumas ohel. Kalapishtan, except for a roof made of flax. You can have an ohel until you built a house. You built a structure, and you have mace that comes in there. So you don't touch the mace, but you're in the ohel, so you're tummy from tumas ohel, even though you didn't touch the mace. But what about the actual roof? What about the actual building? So if it's made out of wood, then the roof itself does not become tameh, even though there's tumas ohel in that space. Okay. Pesilas habeged sekifla below hivhava. Now we're talking about a a wick that's made of a minimum size beged, which is 3 by 3 fingers. So like this, about 3 by 3. Um, that one had twisted into a wick but not singed. He twisted it, but he didn't like the tops. Rabbi Lezer says Tameya, since it was merely twisted and not singed, it is still a beged and can become tameh. They malikim bo, and therefore, when Friday is a yontif, you cannot light a Shabbos candle with it because you cannot burn the kachim on Shabbos. Okay, so why can't you do this? Because the reason for this isser is that as soon as the wick is lit, it becomes slightly smaller than 3 by 3 fingers, 3 by 3 exposed, and then it changes from a beged into a non-beged. Since it changed from one halachic entity into another entity, then it becomes the case of nolad. And nolad, which is muksa and cannot be used on yontif. Once it's muksa, you cannot continue to hold the flame to it as required under the, when you're lighting a Shabbos, you have to hold the flame to the wick in order to light it. Therefore, such a wick cannot be used on Shabbos on Friday that turns into Shabbos. So regular Shabbos is fine. Rabbi Akiva says, Tahora, it's Tahor because it stopped being a beged as soon as it was twisted into a wick. And we may therefore light Shabbos candles with it on a Friday, even if it's Yontif, since it's no longer a beged, it is not an issue. Mishnah Dalid. Now we're talking about Lo Yikov Adam Shifaferish al Beitz of Yilana Shemen Yitnena Al Piyaner. A person may not make a hole in an empty eggshell, fill it with oil, and then place it on the mouth of the lamp. Okay, the shvil shetehei minutefes, so that the oil in the eggshell will drip into the lamp and fuel the flame. So you used to have lamps in the times of the Mishnah, which sort of looked like a genie lamp. You had, I don't know if you can see the picture over here. Of this one, where the oil's in the middle and the flame is on the side. Okay, so you can't put an eggshell with oil with a hole in the bottom for the oil to drip into from the middle into the lamp, and the light still on the side. You can't do that because you might come to remove some of the oil from the eggshell, and that would be a problem um, because you're extinguishing. And you're taking oil out, you come to extinguish the flame earlier, and that's a problem. Such a lamp is usher, even if it's made of a pottery, of earthenware. Um, that's a problem. And Yehuda says, no, it's fine because you can use a separate reservoir, and it's unlikely people are going to remove oil from it, and therefore there's no problem. However, if the craftsman who made the lamp attached to the reservoir, he he made the lamp attached the reservoir to the bowl when he first made it, and everyone agrees that that's permitted to be used. Because in that case it's all one vessel, and the reservoir is part of the lamp, and therefore a person would certainly realize that the oil is meant for the lamp and may not be removed, and therefore it was not necessary to ban this type of lamp. Lo yimali adam esa ka'ara shemen v'inena b'tzad haner v'yitin rosh p'sila b'socha. A person may not fill a bowl with oil, place it beside a lamp, and place the wick and place the unlit end of the wick into it. Why? So that the wick will draw oil from the bowl onto the lamp. And here too, the Chachamim were concerned that one might remove the oil from the bowl and thereby perform the malacha of extinguishing, which is a problem. Yehuda Matir disarrangement, because she doesn't consider it likely that anyone will remove any oil from the lamp. Who's going to go to that trouble? Mishnah Hey, one who extinguishes a lamp because he feels an attack of his life from the idol worshippers who do not allow lighting lamps on their festivals. Mishnah Listim. Right, it used to be a Persian rule, Persian sects that they would answer lighting lamps on their festivals in any place except for the base of Avodah. Therefore, if you lit the lamp in your home, they would come in and extinguish it. They released him, or because he fears that bandits and robbers might attack him if they see the light, if they ruach ra, or because he wants to save the life of someone suffering from like a mental illness. But or so that someone who's very sick may fall asleep. Potter, he's exempt in all four of these cases. He's not going to be punished if he does it because of these. Kachas al haner, kachas al hashem. However, if he extinguishes a flame to save the lamp from cracking due to the heat, or to save the oil, kachas al psila chayev, or to save the wick, then he's chayev. Because according to this Tana, the Torah only answers malachas she'ena sricha leguf, but for the malachas that's not needed for its divine purpose. So therefore, the person who's chayiv in the last three cases that he wants to save the oil or save the wick or save the lamp, right? Even though the extinguishing was only done to prevent loss, he's chayiv. But in the first four, he didn't care about the lamp. He wanted to save his life. Saving lives is mutter on Shabbos. Therefore, he will not be chayiv for extinguishing in those cases. If it's dangerous, then they can put it out. Rabbi Yossi Yossi matters the person who extinguishes the lamp in all these cases, in all seven of them, except when one extinguishes a wick because he intends to make charcoal. Um, that would be a problem. But all the other ones, since the Torah was matir malachash enasich legufa, and he rules that someone's not liable for extinguishing a flame due to the lamp wick or oil in slain a person's life. Therefore, it's not a problem according to Yossi. Mishnah Vav al shalosh averus nashim mesed b'shas ledasim. On account of three averus, women may die in childbirth. Because at the time of childbirth, the woman is in danger and needs rachim shemaim, and therefore the Batei Din shall the Beis Din Shamala is having a court case to see whether she deserves that rachamim, and if she deserves it, then great. And if she's not, then that's a problem. So therefore, everyone during childbirth is going to be held more accountable than other times. So what are these three barriers? Nidam, ubechala, in there. Because they are not careful in observing the laws of Nida, of Chala, and of lighting the Shabbos candles. These are all very serious things that a woman is obligated to do, and therefore she's going to be judged on these three things specifically during childbirth. And finally, Mishnah Zayin for today, Shlosh Dvarim Tzarech Adam Lomer B'Sof B'Yisrael Shabbos Incha Shecha. A person must say three things in his house. These three things in his house to his family members on Erev Shabbos right before candle, right before dark. He started them. Have you taken the Trumas Maises properly from the food that we're going to eat on Shabbos? Because if you didn't, then we can't eat the food because you cannot take Trumas Maises on Shabbos. A rough. Then, did you make a proper Eruv? Yeah, Eruv Techumim, Eruv Chatzeros. For Shabbos, we can carry freely. And Aliko Saner, did you light the Shabbos candles? Since all these things cannot be done on Shabbos, you must remind his family to take care of them before Shabbos begins. You don't want to do it too early in the day because otherwise you're not going to get it done. But it's got to be within a normal time. During Ben Hashmasus on Friday, was the doubt whether it's still Friday or still Shabbos. Is it still day or night? Between Shkia to Tzizah is called Ben Hashmasus. You cannot take Meiser or Truma from definite Tevel, which we spoke about. And you cannot do to this Kalim in order to purify them from the Tumah. And you cannot light the Shabbos candles. Each one of these things are biblically usher, or at least strongly resembles one, and therefore they're prohibited even during Ben Hashmash, when Shabbos might have already started. Aval, finally wrapping up, but you can take Meiser from Demai, that's food that there's a suffix whether Meiser was taken or not. Even that we may make an Erev Chatzeros to permit carry items in Shabbos to, in and out of the Rishiyos, and you may insulate the hot food so that it will remain hot on Shabbos. And those things are mutter to do in a Shmashas. Thank you for joining us. We will continue tomorrow with Perek Gimel. Have a wonderful day.